Kevin Durant visits his elementary school and learns his favorite teacher took her own life. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Kevin Durant had walked into plenty of arenas, but none of them felt like this. The elementary school didn't have a name that echoed like Barclays or Chase Center. It didn't have lights, banners, or security. Just chipped bricks, overgrown grass, and a playground with one basketball hoop barely hanging on. But it was his start. Where he first held a ball and someone told him he mattered. Where a woman with a tired smile and a powerful voice once said, "You've got something, Kevin. And don't you let this world tell you otherwise." Ms. Latimer. He hadn't thought of her name in years. Not because he didn't care. Just, life moved fast. Titles. Trades. Points. Applause. Noise. Now, everything was quiet. A local youth nonprofit had invited him to speak for a community event, nothing major. He wasn't even supposed to come to this side of town. But something about being back in Maryland, seeing the corner store, the bent bus stop sign, something pulled him to walk the extra blocks alone, hoodie up, hoping not to be seen. The school gates were unlocked. He stepped through them and into a time machine. Everything was smaller now. The hallways, the stairs, even the ceiling. And yet, the weight on his chest felt massive. He wandered the halls until he found a janitor sweeping up dust near the cafeteria. "Hey," Kevin called gently, "you been working here long?" The old man looked up and squinted. "Long enough." You look familiar." Kevin half smiled. "Kevin Durant." The broom dropped. "Well, I'll be damned." They shook hands. The man introduced himself as Mr. Collins. They talked for a moment, just two men bridging time. Then Kevin asked the question. "Ms. Latimer, does she still teach here?" The change was immediate. Mr. Collins' face fell. He looked away and took off his cap, rubbing the back of his neck. "She passed," he said quietly. 5 years ago." Kevin froze. "What happened?" "Suicide." The word hit like a punch to the stomach. No warning. Just air gone from the room. "She'd been going through some things," Collins added. "Didn't talk about it. Kept it to herself." Kevin swallowed hard. "She was always strong. Sometimes the strong ones are the ones we miss suffering." Silence grew heavy between them. Kevin finally asked, "Her classroom, is it still around?" Collins hesitated. "Yeah. Nobody uses it. Been locked since. Room 208. Kevin walked slowly down the hall, sneakers echoing like ghosts in the empty building. He stopped at the faded plaque outside 208 and pulled the handle. Locked. Collins caught up and handed him a key. Inside, dust floated through shafts of window light. Desk still in rows. A globe in the corner. A bookshelf with torn covers and one yellowing poster about never giving up. And above the chalkboard, a photo of the 2001 fifth grade class. There he was. Skinny. Crooked smile. Arms crossed like he had something to prove. Ms. Latimer stood behind him with a proud smile and her hand on his shoulder. Kevin stared at it for a long time. He walked to her old desk and sat down. It creaked under his weight. He remembered how she'd tap her pencil when someone acted up, how she'd bring in snacks when kids forgot lunch, how she once stayed after school helping him write a report on Jackie Robinson, even though she had somewhere to be. Nobody ever stayed back for him like that again. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. He was supposed to come back a hero. Show her he'd made it. Say thank you. Pay her back. Instead, she was gone. He leaned forward, head in his hands. The guilt crept in fast. All those interviews, speeches, social media posts. Not once did he mention her name. Not once did he try to look her up. He remembered her saying, Kevin, I don't care if you play ball or teach math. Just make sure you remember who helped you get there. And he hadn't. He stood up and walked to the photo. Reached out, dusted it gently. Sorry, he whispered. The lights flickered, then died again. That's when he noticed a small box on her desk. A beat-up tin, almost buried beneath papers. He opened it slowly. Inside were laminated name tags from her students. Notes. A ribbon from a district award. And a folded paper envelope, brittle at the corners, with his name written in her handwriting. Kevin stared. He didn't open it. Not yet. He put the box down, sat back in the desk, and looked out the window. The court outside was cracked. No nets. Faded lines. But a couple of kids were playing anyway, using a worn-out basketball that bounced like a brick. He watched them. One of them hit a jumper and pointed to the sky like he just won the finals. Kevin smiled. It was all still here. The hunger. The hope. He stood up and walked out of the room, clutching the envelope, the keys still in his pocket. I'll be back, he whispered to the empty classroom. No one answered. But something in him said the message was received. And for the first time in years, Kevin didn't feel like a superstar. He felt like a student. One who still had something to learn. Kevin didn't go straight back to the hotel. Instead, he sat in his car for an hour, gripping the envelope like it was alive. The streetlights buzzed overhead, and every time he thought he was ready to read it, his hand froze. What was he afraid of? That it would hurt? That it would make it real? He finally opened it. Her handwriting hadn't changed. Clear. Firm. No wasted motion. Kevin, if you're reading this, I guess someone found my little box. I hope it's you. I always believed you'd come back, even if I didn't live to see it. I'm sorry for that. He paused. A weight hit his chest again. I watched you on TV more times than I can count. Interviews. Games. Medals. You were brilliant. And I was proud every time. But I also kept wondering if I did enough. Not just for you, for all of them. Some days, I felt invisible. Like nothing I did mattered. Like the world kept moving while I stayed stuck in a classroom full of broken chairs and broken rules. But when I saw you succeed, I told myself, maybe I helped build something that matters. Maybe I was part of something bigger. That's all a teacher really wants. To be remembered. He stopped there. He couldn't read more yet. The tears were too close. He clenched his jaw and stared out the windshield. He had to do something. Anything. He couldn't just let her legacy collect dust. The next morning, Kevin called off every scheduled event. PR appearances. Meetings. A charity dinner he was headlining. He didn't care. The world could wait. He met with the principal. The man seemed nervous, probably assumed Durant was angry or about to sue someone. I want to fix up her classroom, Kevin said plainly. Everything. New books. Desks. Paint. Whatever it needs. The principal blinked. Mr. Durant, that's generous, but the budget. I'm not asking about the budget. I'm saying I'll pay for it. The principal was silent, then nodded. She would have liked that. Kevin walked the halls again, this time with purpose. He passed classrooms where kids were half engaged, teachers worn thin. But it was different now. He noticed the cracked tiles, the flickering lights, the exhausted faces behind the smiles. That afternoon, he stopped by Tasha Hill's place, an old classmate. She still lived in the neighborhood and worked at a rec center. He hadn't seen her since 8th grade. She opened the door and blinked hard. Kev? Hey, Tasha. She stared, then laughed in disbelief. What are you doing here? I came back. For Ms. Latimer. Her smile faded. She stepped aside and let him in. They talked. Tasha remembered everything. The way Ms. Latimer made them recite quotes about self-worth before lunch. The day she caught a bully pushing Kevin and made him apologize in front of the whole class. The coat drive she ran every winter with money from her own pocket. She was different, Tasha said quietly. She actually cared. Even when nobody cared about her. Kevin pulled out the envelope. She left this. Tasha read it slowly, tears welling up. Then she stood and disappeared into her bedroom. She returned with an old, beat-up notebook. She used to keep a journal. She gave this to me the day I got accepted to nursing school. Said she didn't need it anymore, but I should keep it safe. Kevin opened the journal. Every page was about students. Goals. Worries. Names. Then he saw it. Kevin D. has greatness in him. But more than that, he has kindness. I hope the world doesn't make him forget. He didn't speak for a while. When he left, he told Tasha he'd be back soon. That he wasn't done. He returned to the school that evening with supplies. Paint. Brushes. New light bulbs. The custodial staff let him in without question. For hours, Kevin worked in silence. He scraped gum from under desks. He scrubbed the chalkboard until it shone. He painted the walls the soft blue she used to love. It was messy. Slow. But honest. When his body got sore, he took a break and stood by the window. Outside, a boy shot hoops with a flat ball, using his backpack as a rebound net. No coaches. No cameras. Just passion. Kevin walked outside and joined him. The boy froze. "You're Kevin Durant." "Yeah," Kevin said, grabbing the ball and spinning it in his hands. "What's your name?" "Marcus." They played one-on-one for a while. The kid was raw, but determined. Every missed shot came with a wince. Every make came with a quiet fist pump. Kevin grinned. "You play like someone who wants to be remembered." Marcus nodded. "I do. My coach says I got no chance, though. Says I'm too small." Kevin crouched to his level. "I had a teacher once. Told me I could be great. Not because I was the tallest or the fastest, but because I cared." "Did you thank her?" Kevin paused. "I'm trying to." That night, Kevin returned to room 208. He framed the letter and the journal page side by side and placed them on her desk. He sat one last time in the back row. The room smelled like paint and hope. And for the first time in years, Kevin didn't feel like someone who made it. He felt like someone who was just getting started. The next morning, Kevin showed up early again, before the sun even rose. The city was still asleep, but he was wide awake, his mind racing. He had spent most of the night thinking about how much had been left unsaid. About how many more teachers like Ms. Latimer were out there right now, fighting battles no one saw. He stepped into room 208 and flicked the light switch. This time, the new bulbs worked. The blue walls reflected a calm tone. It looked less like a forgotten room and more like a place where dreams could grow again. Kevin pulled out his phone and made a list. He didn't want to just renovate a classroom. That wasn't enough. He needed to bring the heart back, not just the surface. Books, supplies, guest speakers, a scholarship in her name. He didn't know the full plan yet, but he knew it had to be bigger than paint. Later that morning, he met with a local contractor and quietly arranged to restore the school's court, new asphalt, proper rims, painted lines, even benches. It would take a few weeks, but he told them to get started that day. No press. No headlines. Just do it. By noon, word had spread that Kevin Durant was back in the neighborhood. Kids gathered by the school fence, whispering and peeking through. Some tried to get his autograph, but he waved them off politely. "This isn't about me," he said. "Not today." He returned to the classroom and hung up new posters, quotes from people who made something out of nothing. He found one she used to love: "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." He taped it front and center. Then, he did something he hadn't done in years. He sat at the teacher's desk and tried to write. Not a play. Not a social post. Just a letter. Dear Ms. Latimer, he started, but stopped. He crossed it out and tried again. You told me I mattered when no one else did. He kept going. The pen scratched across the page, messy and rushed, but it poured out. All the things he never said. How he used to sit in class pretending not to care, but always heard her voice. How he wore the same shoes 3 years in a row and she never made him feel ashamed. How she changed everything just by being there. When he finished, he folded the letter and placed it beside hers on the desk. That afternoon, he walked outside and saw the same kid, Marcus, shooting around again. This time, there were 2 others with him. No coaches. Just raw energy and cracks in the court. Kevin called out, "You got room for one more?" They stopped. One of them looked unsure. The other was already handing him the ball. They played a quiet 3-on-3 until the sun dropped low. Kevin didn't go easy on them. He made them earn every shot. But when they hustled, he nodded. When they missed and tried again, he smiled. After the game, they sat on the ground, sweating and breathing hard. You know, Kevin said, a classroom isn't just where you sit in a chair. Sometimes it's right here, on a court. Sometimes it's life showing you things nobody else wants you to learn. The kids looked at him, eyes wide. I had someone who taught me that once. Ms. Latimer. She's the reason I didn't give up when the world told me I wasn't enough. Where is she now? One of the boys asked. Kevin paused. She passed. But her voice? It's still here. Every shot I take. Every choice I make. One of the kids said, you should tell more people about her. I plan to, Kevin replied. But not just with words. The next few days were a whirlwind. Kevin called in favors, quietly. No press. He reached out to former classmates, teammates, even a few of his old teachers. Some remembered her. Some didn't. But all of them listened when he explained what she meant. One of the biggest surprises came from his old teammate, Mike. A guy who'd barely passed school, always clowning around, now running a community center in D.C. I remember Ms. Latimer, Mike said over the phone. She once called me out for cheating on a math test. I was mad at the time, but looking back, she was the first person who ever expected something from me. Not less or more. They talked for an hour, coming up with an idea. What if they launched something bigger than a classroom? A mentorship program. Partnered with local schools. Focused on overlooked teachers. Quiet champions. They called it Latimer's Legacy. Kevin paid for the first phase himself. No sponsors. He didn't want corporate logos on it. Keep it about her, he told everyone. In the middle of this planning, Kevin got a message from Tasha. She had been going through old photos and found one from their 5th grade field trip, Kevin, Tasha, and Ms. Latimer standing in front of the History Museum. Ms. Latimer had one hand on Kevin's shoulder and the other holding a clipboard, mid-laugh. Tasha sent it to him. No caption. Just the image. Kevin saved it as his phone lock screen. That night, he sat in room 208 again, this time with music playing from a small speaker. No interviews. No cameras. Just him and the echo of her memory. He leaned back in the chair and looked around. It wasn't perfect. The floor still creaked. Some corners still needed cleaning. But it was alive again. He opened her journal one more time, flipping to the back. The last entry simply read, "If I could tell them one thing, it would be this. Even if no one sees you right now, you matter more than you know." Kevin closed the journal. And in that moment, surrounded by the past and the future he was trying to shape, he knew this wasn't the end of her story. It was only the beginning. The gym echoed with old memories. Kevin stood at center court, staring at the faded three-point line while the buzz of low conversation filled the bleachers. It was the first time he'd been back here with a crowd, not a packed arena, but a community. Old neighbors. Former classmates. Teachers. Kids from the neighborhood who had never seen this place look so alive. It wasn't a media event. No flashing lights, no pregame fireworks. Just a community game organized in honor of Ms. Latimer, and Kevin had made sure it stayed that way. No corporate banners, no interviews, just a handwritten sign on the gym door that read, Latimer's Legacy Game, everyone welcome. The school's court had been redone. Kevin had covered the cost himself. Smooth new surface. Fresh paint. 2 new hoops that didn't rattle every time the ball kissed the rim. The custodians had worked overtime to clean up the gym. It still smelled like old sweat and bleach, but now it felt like it had purpose again. Kevin tightened his laces and nodded at Marcus, who was already shooting around on the far end of the court. The kid had improved fast. Every day after school, he'd been there, working on his shot, asking questions, refusing to leave until someone turned the lights off. "You ready?" Kevin asked him. Marcus grinned. "I was born ready." The teams were a mix of neighborhood kids, former students, and local high school players. Kevin didn't play the entire game, he didn't need to. This wasn't about him dropping 30. It was about giving the next group a shot to feel seen. To feel important. Just like he once did in a classroom that no one had cared about until it was too late. Before tip-off, he stepped to the center circle and raised his hand to quiet the crowd. "I know some of you didn't know her," he began. "But if you've ever had someone believe in you when you didn't believe in yourself, then you knew Ms. Latimer." The gym fell silent. She wasn't rich. Didn't have a fancy car. She didn't go viral. But she changed lives. Quietly. Consistently. Even when nobody thanked her. Kevin looked around. This game isn't to mourn her. It's to honor what she gave us. Because there are teachers, mentors, and parents out there doing the same thing every day. And too often, we only notice when it's too late. He paused. Swallowed hard. "I forgot to say thank you. I won't forget again." He handed the ball to the referee. The game began. The first half was fast, wild. The kids played with everything they had. Marcus hit 2 threes in a row. Kevin clapped loud and proud from the bench. The crowd roared when a kid named Reggie, barely 5 feet tall, drove in for a contested layup and made it. Every point felt like a memory. Every cheer felt like another layer of silence peeling away from room 208. At halftime, the scoreboard didn't matter. Kevin walked to the scorer's table and nodded at the assistant principal. She brought out a covered plaque. He removed the cloth. It read, "The Latimer Legacy Court. In honor of those who saw greatness in others before the world ever did." The applause wasn't thunderous. It was soft. Real. The kind that lingered longer than noise. After the game, people came down from the bleachers, surrounding the court. Some brought flowers. Others just came to shake Kevin's hand. Tasha showed up with her young son. She pointed to Kevin and said, "That's who I told you about. That's someone who never forgot." The boy smiled shyly and held up a crumpled drawing. It was a picture of a teacher in front of a chalkboard with stars above her head. Kevin knelt and took it carefully. "She looks just like her," he whispered. Someone handed him a microphone. He looked down at it, then at the crowd. He didn't want to talk. But he knew he had to. "I've won awards. Rings. I've played for millions of people. But nothing I've ever done means more than this." He pointed to the drawing in his hand. This is legacy. Not a name on a jersey. But a life that reminds someone else they matter. That's what she gave me." He looked toward the classroom windows behind the gym. Room 208 was just barely visible through the tree branches. "And I'm gonna spend the rest of my life passing that on. Later, after the crowd had left, Kevin stayed behind to clean up. He didn't want anyone else to do it. It felt right. Like finishing something that had started years ago. Marcus stayed too, sweeping up popcorn and wiping down the bleachers. "You ever get tired of people asking for pictures?" the boy asked. Kevin smiled. "Used to. But now, I'm just glad they're still asking." "You think I'll make it one day?" Kevin turned to him, serious. "You're already making it. Every time you show up. Every time you push through. Just don't forget where you come from when you get there." Marcus nodded. Then, after a beat, asked, "You think Ms. Latimer saw today?" Kevin looked around the gym. The shine on the floor. The energy in the air. The sound of something old becoming something new. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think she never stopped watching." As they finished up, Kevin looked over at the plaque once more. It was simple, clean, and perfect. He pulled out his phone and took a photo, not to post, but to keep. He stared at the screen for a long time, then added the caption. "She believed before anyone else did." Then he locked the phone and walked out into the night. No crowd followed. No reporters asked questions. Just a man walking away from a game that didn't need a trophy to prove its worth. And somewhere, behind him, in a classroom still full of memory, her voice echoed. Still teaching. Still believing. A few weeks passed. Kevin returned to his NBA schedule, road games, practices, interviews. But something was different. He wasn't just showing up anymore, he was present. Every time he walked into a new gym, he noticed things. The kid in the back row watching quietly. The custodian working overtime. The assistant coach who cared more about grades than highlights. It stuck with him. So did her letter. He carried a copy of it folded in his wallet, right behind his ID. He didn't show it to anyone. It wasn't for show. It was a reminder. Every off day he had, he flew back to Maryland. Quietly. No press. No announcements. Sometimes, he'd help coach pickup games. Other times, he'd just sit in room 208, now turned into a community learning space. Books lined the shelves. Photos of Ms. Latimer's former students were pinned to a bulletin board. A laminated copy of her final journal entry hung by the door. Kids read it on the way in and out. One Friday afternoon, Kevin got a call. The school board wanted to honor Ms. Latimer officially. A ceremony, a few speeches. They asked if he'd speak. At first, he thought about saying no. He didn't like speeches. But something told him this one mattered. The auditorium was small, the kind with creaky seats and a microphone that squealed if you breathed too close. The banner above the stage read, "Celebrating the legacy of Ms. Lorraine Latimer." Kevin sat in the front row, wearing a plain black suit. No cameras in his face, no ESPN crew in the wings. Just locals. Teachers. Students. People who remembered. Tasha spoke first. She kept it real, talked about how Ms. Latimer once bought her shoes for gym class and never told a soul. She said that moment taught her what dignity meant. Then came Mr. Collins, the janitor. He shared how Ms. Latimer stayed late just to make sure he had someone to talk to after his wife passed. Said she made the place feel human when the system forgot them both. Kevin was last. He walked up to the podium and unfolded his letter. His voice didn't shake. It didn't need to. "I used to think legacy was about what you left on the court," he said. "Points, rings, banners. But now I know, real legacy is quiet. It doesn't wear a jersey. It walks home alone after class with a stack of graded papers and a heart still full of hope." He paused. Looked out at the room. Ms. Latimer didn't just teach us math or history. She taught us we mattered. When we were broke. When we were lost. When we were angry at the world. He held up the letter. "She told me I could be great. Not because I had talent. but because I gave a damn. He folded the paper and placed it on the podium. I never got to say thank you. But this, everything we've built, every kid we help, every voice we lift up, that's the thank you now. The applause was long and honest. No standing ovation. No forced cheers. Just people clapping because the truth had been spoken. After the ceremony, Kevin walked back into the hallway. A girl around 9 years old stopped him. She was holding a book from room 208, clutching it like treasure. "Are you the guy who fixed the room?" she asked. He nodded. She looked up at him, serious. "Ms. Latimer sounds like she was magic." "She was," Kevin said. "But you are too. Don't let anyone tell you different." She smiled and ran off. That night, Kevin visited the gym one last time. The lights were off. The court was empty. But he didn't need a crowd. He walked to center court and stood still, just breathing it all in. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Mike," he said, "let's go bigger." His former teammate laughed. "What did you have in mind?" "Scholarships. Mentorships. I want every kid in this state to know Ms. Latimer's name. I want every teacher who's holding a classroom together with tape and prayers to know someone sees them." "You serious?" "Dead serious. You know it's not gonna be easy." "I know. But easy didn't raise me. She did." And just like that, the next chapter began. Over the next year, Latimer's legacy expanded statewide. Then nationally. Schools applied for support. Teachers wrote letters. Kids submitted essays about the people who believed in them. Kevin didn't attach his name to most of it. He didn't want the headlines. He wanted the movement. He did interviews only when it helped a school get more funding. He used his platform to highlight teachers, not himself. People started asking who Ms. Latimer was. Her story spread, quietly, powerfully. Years later, a national award for educators was named after her. On the 10th anniversary of her passing, Kevin stood at the grand opening of a new youth center in Maryland. It had a court, a library, classrooms, and a counseling space. On the wall near the front entrance was a plaque. In memory of Lorraine Latimer. She taught one boy to dream, so he helped the world remember her. Kevin didn't speak that day. He didn't need to. He watched as kids ran in with backpacks, ready to learn, laugh, and chase something bigger than themselves. He stepped into room 208 one last time, rebuilt inside the center exactly how it once looked. The same photo. The same desk. The same words on the wall. He sat down, breathed deep, and smiled. This was where it started. And now, it would never end.